Okay, in today's tutorial we are going to be using Photoshop for layers and to create this Star Wars image poster, but also it's a good way of looking at how you might work with layers and transparencies and scale and bringing things forward, and also using kind of a watercolor effect like I've done with Yoda. So there's kind of a few things happening and thinking about composition. And also you can see a kind of grain within Han Solo and using watercolor effects for that as well. So I'm bringing it all together, and you can get these images easily from Google. So I googled Han Solo, googled Chewbacca, Millennium Falcon, and also you can see the Star Wars text which I just took from the internet. Now, because this is quite a complicated image, I might make a few mistakes during the tutorial, so apologies now, but it might be a long process. And I've got all my layers here. You can see there's quite a few layers, so yeah, just excuse some of my mistakes that I might make throughout. Okay, so first of all, let me get rid of all the layers. I might stop the tutorial occasionally as well, so that you don't have to look through all my kind of processes. So I've got a black and white Han Solo, as you can see. Let's get rid of all of these things and start with the basics. So I've got a black and white Han Solo, and I've got a black and white Chewbacca. And I'm not presuming that you know how to do that, so let's start right from the beginning. So I've got a colour Chewbacca there, and somewhere on these layers, which I should have named really, I've got a colour Han Solo. There you go. And to rename them, you just go like that, and you can put the name in. So I might as well do that for my Chewbacca as well, if I can spell it. Chewbacca, something like that. And so I can easily find it then. So I've got the two colours. You'll notice with the black and white Han Solo that I've brought up the contrast, so that then the colour of the space will come through, or the outer space will come through. So first of all, you need to drag or bring in your Han Solo, and you just do that from File and Place. And Place Embed, or you can just drag it directly in, but I've got both my images from that. You'll notice that there is a white background around it. Chewbacca came already cut out, but Han Solo I'm going to have to cut out. But I can do that after I've made him black and white and desaturated him. So, to do that first of all, now you can do two things here. If you want a really extreme black and white, you can do that by going to Threshold, and I'll show you what happens. But first of all, I do want to desaturate the image because I want it black and white. So you do that by going to your layer. I may have to, the layer at the moment, I'm going to have to rasterize the layer because it's a smart object and I can't edit it. So I'll rasterize the layer. You go to layer, just a reminder, rasterize, and it's under here. So you rasterize your layer, and then you can actually do things with it. So I'm going to then desaturate my image, which makes it black and white. Okay, so you can see there. And you will want to do that with Chewbacca as well. I could do that now. In fact, so you go to Image, Adjust, Desaturate, but I haven't rasterized the layer, so I go to Smart Object, Rasterize, and then I can then desaturate again, which is Image, Desaturate. Okay, so there you go. They're both quite dark. So I can do things in different ways. Let's go back to Han Solo's layer. Remembering layers all the time. Here are your layers. You've learned that already through our tutorials. So you need to go to the Han Solo layer, Adjust, and what you could do is you could go to Brightness and Contrast and bring up the brightness and contrast from just like that. So you've got different contrast there, and you can see that the background's almost completely gone. So you can do it that way. or you can do it through a threshold, which makes it really, really black and white. So you can see there that you've got extremities of your black and white, which I didn't use, but some people might quite like that. And that was under threshold if I did it too quickly. And then you can also do it through shadows and highlights, and you've got all these options. These come up, it usually comes up with that, but you can show more options. You can bring up the contrast and tone and things like that, and you can get quite a nice kind of grain with it as well, which you don't get with others. So you can play around with these. Can you see the grain there? And bringing up the contrast and the amount of shadows that you want. Bring down the colour, mid-tones, and you can bring up those so you've got kind of an extreme with that. And what I might do, because I quite like the grain with that, what I might do then is go back to brightness contrast and bring up the brightness. Like that. Until you're happy. Can you notice I've got a nice kind of grain from doing it the other way. So it's brightness and contrast with a mix of shadows and highlights. Okay, and then I want to do the same with Chewbacca. So go to Chewbacca, go to Image Adjust, go to Shadows and Contrast. There you can see he's much lighter. We're doing that. I want to lighten them up a little bit more. Play around with it until you're kind of happy with it. I'll bring out the contrast in a minute. Okay, like that, and then go back to Image, adjust brightness, contrast, and then you can bring up, that's too much, you can bring up the contrast. Contrast exaggerates the black and whites within it. Okay, until you're quite happy with your overall thing. What I did do is I adjusted the size of Chewbacca before, because I thought he was too big within the design. So I'll just make him a little bit smaller. When you use this link button, it actually does it in, you can see that it is working within height and length. So it does it in ratio. You can do that also by pressing Shift down. So I'll make it the size I want it. Quite a big heavy contrast between the two. So you can see how black and white he is. So I might actually just bring up the contrast a tiny bit more on Chewbacca. So he has got those darks compared to Han Solo. Okay, there you go, and you can do the same with the Millennium Falcon as well, which I already have done. You can see there's a slight line within Han Solo, and you might want to get rid of that. So you could Magic Wand that selection, but it will also mean getting rid of the whiteness of there, because I should have done it before. So what I will do is just delete, erase that section of that line, so I don't go into his face, which won't make a big difference, but I can just delete all of that kind of section. Okay, so there you go. And that means I haven't got rid of, means I haven't got that anymore, that line. Right. So the next stage I want is to actually get, is to either bring in the space part, or I can also bring in my lines, which are here. As you can see, there's a white area around Han Solo, So I want to get rid of that, and I can just go to multiply if I wanted to. Actually, let me just... Right, okay, so my first mistake of the tutorial is I should have really cut around Han Solo before I made him black and white, so I can get rid of the white more easily. But we can still do it. What we do is select Han Solo underneath the quick selection, so we need to use the quick selection tool. It would have been easier when he was in colour, but you can still do it. What you need to do is select and drag all around Han Solo, because we want to keep the white areas within him. You can see that it is actually selecting parts around, which is a little bit annoying. We may have to lose a bit of his sleeve when we're doing this, but hopefully not. Yeah, you see it's selecting that area. So we go into minus and we go into that, so that's okay. We're going to lose his finger, but that's alright. We need to plus his face. Right, and then we need to minus this part. So we can then select part O. Okay, so that's alright. It's not as bad as I thought it might be. Let's see if we can plus this part. Okay, there you go. Right, so we inverse our selection because we want to get rid of the white around it. And then we can refine the edge a little bit so it's smoother. So we bring it smooth. Let me do that again because I might have done it too quick. Go up to here, refine edge, and this means our selection is quite smooth by going up to smooth and feather. Feather makes it softer, and we can bring up the contrast as well. So you can see the bits that it's getting rid of. Okay, and because Chewbacca has already been done that, because we got it from the internet, we don't actually have to do it for this. So let's OK that. And then all we have to do is press either backspace, or you can press delete. But if you press backspace on your keyboard or delete, it will then get rid of that area. So all I've got missing is that part there, which I can live without. And there you go. So I have actually cut him out, which will make it better for the future. Right, so now we need to make these lines. Now we've cut out Han Solo, we need to make those lines. So to do that, we need to create a new layer. Okay, so new layer. And if you want to be really good at housekeeping, we can call this lines by double clicking, so we know we can easily get to it. And I'm bad at making my different things, but it just means it's easier. So go to the rectangular marquee tool, create the size, make them quite long. So the selection of the lines like that. Because you're going to add some more and more, you need to change it from that single one to add selection. And we can make them all different sizes. So let's have some thin ones and some thick ones. Keep on going. You get the idea. Maybe one more small one. Okay, make sure we're on that line layer, and now you need to make a gradient. So the gradient selection is under the color,